You have Nelly, you have Lil Jon, you have Ludacris, 50 Cent. Do you feel they will win when it comes to club music now?
100%.
Yeah. And do you feel there's a facade behind these female artists talking about, I don't need a man, they're independent, but then you see them getting cuffed up?
I think that first comes from them growing up and seeing a black female not having a nigga.
A little bit of anger.
I think there is. I think there's some misplaced anger. Cardi said it best. Niggas will only do what you allow. And I take that for everybody. When they're not rapping about drugs, killing, there's so much in this world that we could be rapping about. And you want to rap about the nigga you just bought.
Kind of reminds me of that one Netflix movie, they Cloned Tyrone. Oh, remember that scene? It's like, oh, let's turn the music up. That really opened my eyes, like, yo, like, this is true because certain music, they have frequencies and sound waves, and it's true.
That's what to me.
Hello, Black Table Talk. I'm your host, Lil Jon, and I'm here with Myzzie Banks. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so your new song, Out of Town, can you explain more about that?
Yeah, so basically it's me. When I was writing it, I was backed up on a couple of bills, actually, stressed about school. And at some point in an artist's career sometimes, or at least for me, I sit there and I'm like, how am I gonna make this happen? I know for myself I'm gonna get there eventually, but sometimes you think about it too hard and you're like, how am I gonna make this happen in this moment? So that's what the song was born out of, was literally me trying to write my way out of town. Cause I write the beats, I write the words and everything, I mix it myself. So it's really me trying to write myself in a better position.
On the topic of beats, you mentioned that earlier. You know, listening to the song, it sounds kind of retro. So where do you get that inspiration from?
My main inspirations come from Lauryn Hill, Nicki Minaj especially, I want to say Biggie, Tupac, a lot of the 90s and late or early 2000s. Because I grew up on a lot of that music, as well as my dad. He's also an artist. So I remember growing up with him, and there'd be times where he's like late night recording stuff, and he's late night doing things, and I would just be upstairs listening. So yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. And how long have you been in this music?
I decided that I would start being serious about my career in 2020. I came to Salem State as a social work major, and then changed to a music major. I like to say that music chose me instead of me choosing music, because I just have a very special connection with the way you can hear music, the way that I like to produce a sound.
Okay, so what was that early experience like with music when you first created your first song? You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure, as to most artists, it wasn't the best, but what was that experience like?
So, my first song that I ever wrote, I'll go to my first song I ever wrote and then talk about the first song I ever released. The first song I ever wrote, it was kind of bad. It was really bad, actually.
No worries, yeah.
But every artist is like their first, or most artists, I won't say every, but most artists like have like their first songs that are like terrible, they just don't release. But the more you get into it, when I'm first starting out, it's fun, because for me, I like mixing, I like engineering. That's really fun to me. I like all the technological aspects of music. What it is for me is that at first, when you get into it, there's so much new that you don't know. There's things that you don't know that you don't know. You know what I mean? So when you're first making it, like, I started out with using sound packs and just putting stuff together. And that's where most of my beats are generated, from like different sound packs, and just put them together and put them and arrange them in certain ways. But as you go on, you learn to like start hearing music differently. Like, and when you start listening to music and stuff, you start hearing like how a producer could have put things together and everything, and you start piecing it together in the studio in your head. And for me, that really helped me create, like, being able to, because my main instrument is voice and piano, so it really helps me be able to create melodies in my head. It helps me create words to flow with those melodies. So like starting out, it was a little rough, but it was fine, because I was just learning new things about it. And I think that if you find it fun, then you should continue with it. It's a pretty good song. I got a lot of good reviews on it. And I sat down and smoked a blunt one day and I started writing random different things and like things that like the flow was great, but I wasn't really saying anything crazy.
Right.
But the flow was great, and then I had a good hook, and I learned that like from that moment that rapping and singing, because a lot of people are like you can't rap and sing on the same track. I've heard that a lot from people, but one of the things is that that's what I grew up on. It's like Lauryn Hill would be rapping on the same track and singing. Nicki Minaj does the same thing. A lot of different artists will have not even their own raps, but like someone else rapping and then singing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really what I grew up on. That's where a lot of my music comes from.
Yeah, one example I can think of is Biggie and Faith Evans, right?
Yes, yes.
Throwback.
Especially them, like it's giving. I never knew another love like this before. Yeah, some shit like that. Yeah, I really grew up on the old school shit. So like a lot of my music right now, especially, is derived from those roots.
Okay, that's good. And you said your father was the one that brought you.
Yeah, my father is also a part-time musician, and growing up, he didn't really get me into music as much, but like he would always be playing his music that he raps on. He'd be staying up late with a bottle of fucking Remy and just writing his shit down.
Yeah.
But I'd always be upstairs, like on top of the stairs, just listening, or like down the hall, listening to see, and like creeping on the corner just to see how his writing process is. And he had a whole home studio, and so like it was really nice to like hear like all of his writing process and be right there in the moment. You know, it's a different thing to have. I mean, he's not like a mainstream A-list, B-list artist or whatever, but it's a different thing to have an artist as a parent or anybody in the arts to see how their work process is, because that heavily influences your work process.
That's very true, for sure. And I feel like being exposed to that at a young age really got you developing your own sound and thinking about the skills to use, right?
It did. For a long time, when I was younger, I remember when Michael Jackson died, but
R.I.P.
R.I.P. for real. I remember when he died, and I was like 8 years old or something like that, or like 8 or 9, and I was like, I have to be the next one. I have to be him. I have to be that person. You know what I mean? And so for a long time, like my dream was to be an artist, was to create music, to create something that people could feel with just listening. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then, in my teen years, kind of fell off with that. It was like I heard a lot of people would tell me, "Oh, you're not gonna get anywhere with that. It's unattainable career, all this other stuff." And teachers tell you, "Let's think realistically." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of points in my teen years where I was like, "I'm not gonna do that," because everyone's like, "It's not obtainable. It's not something that people can make money off of." But when I got to college, I was like, there's nothing else in this world that I would want to do but create music, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm all for supporting people going for their passions and following their dreams, because that's what I'm doing, and so far it's working out.
For sure. I mean, Jay-Z's uncle was also the one that was not making him believe in himself of selling those records. And I remember this one interview, he was like, "I sold 1 million records like 1 million times." And his uncle was like really not believing in him, not because he hates him, because he just wants the best for him. And sometimes they don't really see that. Some people just don't see the vision, they don't see the process, and they just can't imagine that. If they can't imagine it for themselves, then they can't imagine it for you.
Else. And that's why a lot of the times I only try to talk to like musicians, I only try to talk to like people who do a podcast or people who are in the arts, because the people, no shame to, I don't want to say normal people, because we're all normal people, but the people who are interested in plumbing and teaching and I don't know, geology and whatever, that's great. You're following those dreams, but like, not to say that my dreams are more important, but my dreams have more at stake, mm-hmm. Because everyone if there's one thing that's true about being in the music biz, is that there's no guarantee you're gonna get big. You can do everything in your power to try to make it, and sometimes you're still not gonna make it,
Right.
Or at least to where you want to be. Because if you put 100 every day, you're still gonna get to. If you put 100 every day, you may not make 100. You might get to 60. You might get to 70. But it's better than being at 0.
You know, I think I said this last time, you know, if you aim for the moon, and if you missed it, at least you'll play in the stars.
At least you're somewhere out there, you know?
Exactly. And do you feel the music industry is connection-based? You mentioned earlier that, you know, it was something to do with, you know, sometimes you're not going to get as big, but it's more to it than just talent. It's also about
there is so much more to it than just talent. You have to know people. You have to really put yourself out there. Talent is one thing, but, you know, you have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to badger people almost and like get them to not just hear your stuff, but hear who you are as a person, get to know you, and make them believe they should invest in you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because getting to know people is an investment. Getting to be around folks and getting to know strangers is an investment on your soul, you know? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, especially in the music biz, I mean, they probably already got fucked over. They probably already been messed up and stuff. They probably got their own stuff going on. They don't really want to meet no people. So you have to give them a reason why like they need to listen to you. You have to give them a reason why they should take their time out of the day to give it to you, you know?
So what's your advice on new artists or artists who are currently in the industry or not in the industry, just trying to make it into the industry? My influences, how do they garner that influence that you said before? Like, how do they get the attraction, the audience, and the crowd?
My thing is, okay, so for me personally, my advice is don't compare yourself to other artists, even if they're like starting artists and not like. No matter what, don't compare yourself to another artist, because at the end of the day, your journey is catered to yours specifically. You know, what you're doing is you. You know, it's authentically you. There's not another person on this earth that has the same story as you. You know what I mean? That's been through exactly the same things in life that you have been to. You know, so I think it's important that people don't especially young artists, that they don't compare themselves to another artist, and that they also don't rush the process. Because one thing I've noticed about a lot of artists that I look up to is that hiatuses and taking breaks and taking time to make that right song is important. Because if you're just producing stuff and making stuff and putting it out there and it's trash, no one's gonna listen to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's important that as artists you should take your time, cultivate your craft. I'm still doing it, you know, taking time to figure out what genre is my favorite, what genre I sound best in, you know, and also taking the time to get to know people, because you never know what that person does, you know. The thing for me is like your occupation and your interests are not tattooed on their body. They're not on your sleeve. Mm-hmm. So you never know what doors you might be closing by saying, I'm not meeting this person, I don't want to do all that, you know?
Yeah, and you mentioned about different lives, different artists. Do you feel their unique experiences will cater towards a certain audience?
I think it will. I think it very will. I think I have a friend in Cape Cod who she does indie rock music, indie pop-ish. And, you know, her experience growing up is not the same as mine. I grew up in Mattapan, Boston, and moved around a couple times. Mm-hmm. So, like, her experience is not going to be the same as mine. And so what I rap about and the passion I have for what I'm saying and the way I hear a song is going to be different from the way she perceives it, you know? Right. Because she grew up in a different environment. She grew up in, I don't know, she didn't grow up in a city, you know? She wasn't in the life that I lived through.
She wasn't going through that struggle, you're saying?
Yeah. Basically, like, you know, I mean, I'm not going to shade her struggle because everyone goes through their own struggle. Like, she definitely has gone through her own stuff too, but it's just we all go our own personal stuff, you know? We all go through our own stuff that's uncomparable to someone else's, because you never know how that might be, you never know what they're going through and how that is affecting them, as opposed to how it would affect me. I'm not them. Like, I've been through a lot and they haven't been through enough, so that something small would be something small to me would be something big to them, or vice versa, you know?
It's a good, interesting perspective. Some person may go through something that may not be as a big deal as somebody else.
Yeah.
And you can't see it on the surface, but they're probably experiencing possibly the same feeling.
So, yeah.
But just different perspective, just different.
I mean, like I said, we all grew up in a different life. We all grew up in different things. We all had different households. Some people didn't even have households, you know? Yeah. So, like, there's people that rap about that. There's people that rap about homelessness. I mean, that sing about having daddy's money. I just think it's important that, like I said, that artists don't compare themselves, because everyone's story is not yours.
True. Facts. And when did you know, or what was the first time you realized you had a passion for this? When did it spark? I
think it sparked in high school, and I ignored it for a while. When I said I came here as a social teacher, but I came as a music minor, so I didn't completely ignore it. But in high school, in my last 3 years of high school, I was in an alternative school, and there was like a music production class almost. So like we would sit there and basically, what's that word? We would just sing other people's songs. I don't know the word I'm singing for.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like covers?
Covers, yes. We would like cover other people's songs and stuff, and but as a band, we would put it to life as a band. So you know the song, I forgot what the name is, but it's like, I don't mind spending every day out on a corner in the pouring rain.
I think that's Adam Levine's.
It's Maroon 5.
Maroon 5, yeah.
She Will Be Loved.
Yeah, I want to say that. Like,
yes, we covered that song. We covered Ariana Grande, and it wasn't just like me and like a couple other people. It was like me and like I want to say 10 other people. So like, we had like a good amount of people playing drums, guitar, and what did it for me was that being on stage and hearing everyone's reaction to like how good our music is, because we would take in time to not like just cover the songs, but make those songs our own. You know what I mean? Because you can always cover a song and make it sound just like the artist, or you can cover a song and put your own little twist or your own spin in it. You know? Right. So that's what we would do as a class, and the satisfaction that I received from seeing everybody like happy and just performing in general, and then I started performing my own songs and covering other people's songs. For a while, I was hooked on Sam Smith, so I would like write my own songs, perform them, and then cover another Sam Smith song or something. You know what I mean? Right. But just the support and appreciation that I received just for like just putting on a show was what really did it for me. I like when I was a kid, I used to you know the Single Ladies music video? Yeah, Beyonce. I used to know the whole choreograph. I used to know the whole thing. I would like be during like in my breaks in class, I would search it up on YouTube and dance to it and stuff, and I love putting on a show. I like dancing, I like singing in front of a crowd. It's nice to see people's reactions. It's nice to see that like you're connecting with people, and you don't have to connect to them on a personal level. Your song can just be personal enough to connect to them, or you just covering a song emotionally enough could connect to someone, you know?
And then, do you feel that stage presence is very important when it comes to your audience? I think some artists are very shy. Yeah, no, I think it is very important. I think that you gotta take up some space. Fill up the space that's there for you. Personally, I like taking up space. I like to say I'm here and you're not gonna ignore me. So in the event that I do go on stage, you're gonna see like I'm here. I'm not. Y'all not gonna see the background of me. You're gonna see me. Right. And another few of my influences like Rihanna, Beyonce. I like their style of putting on the show. You know what I mean? Beyonce with the choreographs. I mean, it's insane. And then Rihanna with like just the outfits, the style, like the aesthetic of it. You know? Right. And looking at Beyonce, she puts in hours into her dances. You have to. You can't put in 30 minutes into a song or into a dance where you're not going to learn anything. 30 minutes, for me, will be 10 seconds or maybe even 20
spent on a song, on like one section of a song. It's like if you're writing, it's like I'll sometimes, because producing and mixing and putting beats together comes easier to me more than writing. So sometimes when I'm writing, and I like to write and produce at the same time, because the beat also tells a story, not just the song, not just the lyrics. So I like to write at the same time, and sometimes it'll take me 45 minutes just for a 1 minute section, you know?
Wow. So it's just very. Do you feel like it's tedious?
It is. It's very tedious, and sometimes that's what's like I don't want to do it. Like just for the laziness of it, I'm like I really don't want to get up and mix this or put this in this one bar and cut it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to do it, but then I'm like, what motivates me is like, if I'm not gonna do it, there's gonna be someone else that's the first, and I don't want to like be known for this in my career, but should I make it to that level, when I make it to that level of fame and people are knowing my name, people aren't just gonna know Myzzie Banks, but they're also gonna see like I'm the first trans female artist to get to where I want to be. You know what I mean? To get to that point. Never mind black female, you know? And I don't want to be known for that in my career, but that's one of the things that like reminds me like I'm the first. I should keep pushing myself so that I can, even if I don't make it to being the first, that I can be one of the first, you know? Nicki, Cardi, and another female rapper, Millie, and all of them, they were part of the first, especially City Girls too. They were part of the first of like female rap artists that like got the attention. Because people in the 90s, they got attention. People in the 80s, they got attention. You know, Queen Latifah, what's her name? I'm blanking.
Ashanti?
No, not Ashanti. She's not much of a rapper. Roxanne Shante, like, they got attention and stuff, but, you know, the female artists today are not getting that, we're not getting that same attention. We're getting more attention. We're getting more people on our scene, you know? So being the first in the queer community to be in that level says a lot, you know? Speaks volumes.
Do you feel as if it's because the audience, when they hear those music, they feel like it's kind of repetitive or, in a way, a little mediocre? Like, same repetitive things.
Well, what do you mean?
Because back in the days, like, Lauryn Hill, like, she would have amazing wordplay. And it's not something that you can just, like, write it down in a few seconds.
No, that takes
amazing.
time.
It takes time. So when it comes to today's artists, today's modern artists, it just feels as if it was rushed.
It's all the same. Today's artists are, no shade to anybody in the music biz. Today's music it's the same shit over and over. And I don't know Ice Spice, I don't listen to her, but she's a very good example of, I don't want to say mediocrity, because she is good. She's a good artist. She's really good. But she could be so much better. You know what I mean? She could do so much better. Shake My Ass Up Nelly is like, I already do that with other people, with other musicians.
It's like, pretty catchy though, like Delhi.
It's catchy. That's the point. It's catchy. That's it. There's what's more to it? Where's the message? What am I shaking my ass at Nelly for? Am I drunk? Like, it's not an attack on her song or her or anything. It's just like, it's an example of today's music is not what it used to be. And I understand when a lot of people are like, oh, today's music, back in the day we had this and that. And people will say that was back in the day, it's a new age. If it's a new age, then show us something new.
Okay. And what's the important makeup of a song? For example, the tone, the lyrics, the wordplay, just everything. What's the most important aspect of a song that you would consider to be good?
I think if the beat is automatically good, the song is already at like a 6 or 7 out of 10. You know, if the wordplay is also important, because you gotta put words in spots you wouldn't normally put words in. You gotta fill in the gaps. You know,
right?
And for me as an artist, that's one thing that like you don't hear much of that out of town, but there's a lot of songs that I have coming up that are like you'll hear those influences that are the wordplay that come from like Nicki Minaj and Cardi B and stuff, and you'll hear the intricacies of what's of everything at once, you know? Because you can't single out one part of a song and be like, okay, this is what's important for the song, because what makes a song is the words and the beat. You know, the words, the beat, the melody, the harmonies. Like, it's the way you make the harmonies. If you do like a fourth harmony, then it's happy, but if you do like a third, it's kind of sad. You know what I mean? So you gotta look at every aspect of an individual song and say which part of that song is salvageable and the most important, you know? So for each song is different, but I think if the beat is good, you're automatically at a 6 or 7 for me.
For sure. There's artists out there who are trying to find their sound, and there is one good artist that I was listening to. His name was TODAYS, and he had a great he's R&B, has his genre, and it sounded like it was recorded in the 90s, which I was very surprised. So do you feel as if there's artists now that are retro, that are really going back to their roots, as in back in the 80s and 90s?
I think there are. I think that when I look at a few of the upcoming artists around me, like, I noticed that there were a lot of heavy influences from the early 2000s, because our generation, that's what most of us grew up on. And I think that the industry cast out that music because we've already heard it, but they're not hearing the refined. You know what I mean? Because I feel like our generation that does the 90s, that does the old R&B is a refined version of R&B back in the day. You listen to Giveon and then you go to Usher. I mean, then you can't compare them, but like you go to Giveon or Usher and then you can see like, okay, so like this is the elevation. You go from Erykah Badu to Summer Walker. You know what I mean? And you see like the comparison. It's like Erykah Badu is the blueprint, and Summer Walker read that blueprint through and through. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like on top of Summer Walker already being her own individual amazing ass of an artist, you know. So mixing that with her influences and everything, it's like it's a refined version of that genre that I think is not getting enough of an audience.
For sure. Erykah Badu is an amazing artist. Like, she created that song On and On, and that was just a classic. Neo Soul is one of the best genres, right?
It's Neo Soul and R&B are like the only things I really listen to the most. I was just listening to Times Are Wasting by Erykah earlier on my way here, but that's my go-to genre. Like the slow, smoky room, the blunt in hand, the person on the stage and on the mic, you know what I mean? The person on the piano in the background. That's my scene. I like R&B. I like Neo Soul. I definitely want to get more into that in my music. I wanna showcase that more. But yeah, it's one of my favorite genres.
When it comes to scenery, it sounds like you're more of a lounge person.
Yes.
Because when I'm thinking about the early 2000s and their songs, it still is hitting. Like, if you play in the club right now, it would still hit.
Yeah.
It would still hit. So you have Nelly, you have Lil Jon, you have Ludacris, 50 Cent. Yeah, I love 50 Cent. Like, 50 Cent he's good. Those artists were the ones
Don't forget about Kanye in his old days. I know.
Oh yeah, for sure, Kanye. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I know there's some
things
going on.
But I know he's doing his thing. But, you know.
You can't deny he's still a great artist.
No, he is.
And those sounds back then, do you feel like they will win when it comes to club music now? I feel like they are still like the catalogs of that sounds in 2000s, 2001s, Nelly, Ludacris, Kanye, all those people. Do you feel it's better than the club music now? For example, Lil Uzi Vert's "I Wanna Rock," you know.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that music is 10 times better than 100 times, 3,000. You know, I think it's so much better than the music that gets produced today. I'd rather go to a lounge than go to a club and listen to I Wanna Rock and Act Up. Although if you do play Act Up at a club, I'm there. But, you know, I'd much rather go to a lounge where you're playing Ari Lennox and Summer Walker and Erykah, Mary J. Blige, you know, Usher. I'd much rather stick with that than do the ratchetness. You might catch me in a ratchet environment. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna be there, but it's definitely not my favorite. I don't go out like that.
Yeah, because when it comes to those type of songs, you feel like there's no substance, right?
Not really. I mean, at least listen. I wasn't going to clubs back in the 2000s and 2010s, but they seemed like they was lit listening to fucking Usher and fucking Queen Latifah and all of them in the club. They seemed lit. Never mind, the Snoop Dogg was still coming out with hits. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they seemed lit.
Reminds me of 106 in Park, after school you'd watch that, and you'd see like the guest appearances, and there were the crowd, which I think is the crowd. The crowd back then was just more lively.
It was, because everybody was, okay, so one thing that really bothers the shit out of me is everybody's on their fucking phones. Like, everybody,
sure.
like, that has ruined our generation, and I think that like I said, the songs don't hold the substance, so the beat is fire and it's catchy, and that's all there is to it. You go to a club and hear I Just Wanna Rock, you're gonna hear it for 2 seconds and the DJ's gonna skip it just because it's catchy, and then it's gonna be alright, I've heard enough.
I see. So it's better when everyone's chanting and they feel it. They feel it in the soul.
You know what I mean?
And that's why the crowd's more lively.
Yeah, it's like, I listen to 2C. I love that man. I just went to a concert the other day, and his music holds substance. His music holds serious shit, like for the niggas and for the girls. I think that we need more people to listen to him, and I know that he talked about how he doesn't want to rap about drugs and guns and all the time and shit like that. Like, that's the shit that people need to pay attention to, is when they're not rapping about drugs, killing, and all this stuff. Like, there's so much in this world that we could be rapping about, and you want to rap about the nigga you just bought.
It kind of reminds me of that one Netflix movie, they Cloned Tyrone. Oh, remember that scene? It's like, let's turn the music up, and they did an experiment.
It's in the food.
It's in the chicken,
Chicken.
I was like, that really opened my eyes. Like, this is true, because certain music they have frequencies and sound waves, and it's true.
That's what to me, they Cloned Tyrone is real. I don't care what anybody says. It might be conspiracy theory, bullshit. That shit's real. Some communities. It has to be, because for one, where did someone get the idea to make that? Anyways, for two, it makes sense. All people listen to, all the people I've listened to, my college friends and everything, all that we listen to is shaking ass and smoking. You know what I mean? The food around us that we're catered to, it's mostly chicken and all the types of stuff. It's fast food, McDonald's. We're not. It's a system. Everything in America is a system. For us, it's not catered to us. It's not catered for us to make it somewhere. It's not catered for us to change our minds about things, And I think that the Cloned Tyrone is a very serious example of the black community now, and how niggas with the fucking black truck must be an artist or something like that. Must be some type of DJ or something. We can't just have that type of money.
The one thing that I can't figure out is the cloning. I think it's more a metaphor.
I mean,
because that's hard to do.
It could be a metaphor, it could be real, but even if it is a metaphor, we can argue about that too, because the metaphor it's to me that every nigga is the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Every other nigga is the same. Every nigga
replaceable.
Replaceable. They got the fade. They deal drugs. One drug dealer got problems with another. It's the same with gangs. One gang got another problem with the other over some territory, or over someone killing somebody, whatever the case may be. But it's foolishness. And I think that, I'm not even gonna sit here and act like I'm above that, because in my future songs that y'all will hear in the future, like, there's some stuff that's basically like that. I mean, I have ass shaking music already out. Shout out to Bad Bitch Anthem. I have music that's already shaking ass on stuff out anyways, but let it be known that this is not the culture I wanted to be in when I was growing up,
Yeah, the culture definitely needs to change, and hip hop has a major influence into that and how people act.
It does, and I think that no shade to the women now in the rap industry, but yeah, I think we got to do better. I think that we got to shift gears in what we talk about and what we're doing. Yeah, the rah-rah shit's cute, but like, there's more to life than that. There's more to life than shaking my ass in the deli. No shade in his face.
And do you feel there's a facade behind that? You see these female artists talking about, I don't need a man, they're independent, but then you see them with these artists getting cuffed up, and it's confusing, you know what I mean?
Okay, so I think that the idea of I don't need a man stuff is like, it's cool and all, because I mean, I'm the same way kind of, like I don't need a man, I'm good by my own, but I think it stems from, like I said, everything's a system. Everything in our community especially is a system. So like with black females today and black female artists, I don't need a nigga, fuck all that. I think that a lot of that first off stems from them growing up and seeing a black female not having a nigga and having to struggle with that one because they don't have a nigga, you know?
Right.
And especially I'm the same way, especially for me, where it's like I have seen that, and I'm like, I don't need a nigga. I don't want someone to, I don't want to feel like I have to depend on someone, you know? And I don't shame that culture. I don't shame it, but I think that the narrative should be switched. I think that like needing a nigga shouldn't be a necessity, and you shouldn't be shamed for it if you do want one, you know?
Yeah.
And if you have one and you're successful in your relationship and in your career, that should be celebrated, you know? Because 9 times out of the 10, in these days, relationships always are gonna end up someone cheating, or it's gonna end up with something unfaithful, you know?
Right.
And that's just our generation. So I don't think that females are wrong for saying they don't need a nigga, because we all came to this world alone and we'll leave alone, but I also don't applaud the statement, you know?
Right.
Even though I say it myself, I don't applaud it. Like, I'm not like, you should never need a nigga,
It's just kind of like a saying, you know, and some people just misconstrue it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do you feel if it's just a little bit of anger?
I think there is. I think there's anger, maybe some misplaced anger. I think that people, like I said, see what they see when they're growing up and blame it on their fathers, and then they get into relationships that like where you already said you don't need the nigga, so the nigga has registered you don't need him, so he's there for the sex. And so when you get upset and attached to something and you want the nigga to stick around, you said you didn't need one. You know what I mean? And it's not just that specific example, but you know, it can be vice versa. It's a bunch of different factors.
So I feel as if the anger is really much of a protection, saying that I don't need a man, but in reality they really want to.
Yeah.
They're just saying that to try to convince themselves if somebody were to end up leaving them, that anger is the one that is there. Because really what that anger is saying that I deserve better. I want that protection, and it's really just a place to protect themselves from getting hurt.
Yeah, because most people, especially most females, were like, we have ourselves, we've always had ourselves, so we're gonna keep having ourselves, regardless if we have a nigga or not. And I think that's where the I don't need a nigga stems from, because we're always gonna have ourselves. We're always gonna be the boss in our relationship, because our relationship is with us, ourselves, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that when a nigga comes along and they have to start compromising, they have to start understanding that, like, if you want this person in your life, you're gonna have to, first of all, stop saying you don't need a nigga. But second,
that's the obvious.
You know what I mean?
That's the most straightforward response.
Secondly, is allowing yourself to need someone. You know what I mean? Allowing yourself to like want that other person, because you might miss someone's company, you might miss that person, but then like that I don't need a nigga mentality is switch in. You're like, I don't need to miss him. What am I missing him for? You throw yourself in work or whatever the case may be. But I think it's important that, like, you know, it's okay to say you don't need a nigga if you really don't want a nigga.
Right. You know? There's definitely strength and vulnerability in saying that you want someone.
There's a lot of Doja Cat just said recently in one of her songs that she got a lot of bacon for being naked.
As there's difference between what a man is and what a woman is, and it's okay to have our differences. You know, everyone says, oh, you know, we accept differences, but in reality, they're just saying that to say that.
Yeah.
Now, a man can't do everything that a woman can do, and a woman can't do everything that a man can do. And so when it comes to like, oh, I don't need a man, that's okay if you feel like you can do everything yourself. That's fine, right?
But
it's really like what you see in a man, and it also, what stems from that, I feel as if, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because they see their mothers, you know, supporting themselves, and because they see that, but in reality, they don't know what the mother's going through. So they say, "Oh, my mom did everything," but how would you know if she really wanted someone to be with? Like, you don't know that for sure.
Just because someone did everything alone doesn't mean they wanted to.
Exactly.
And I think of that constantly, is that like, just because we're going through it alone, just because we're doing something alone, or just because we're, you know, alone, period, doesn't mean that we want to be alone. And there's a very strong difference and a fine line between solitude and loneliness. And I think that, like, for me personally, I like solitude. You know, I don't like anybody messing up with my aura. I don't like anybody messing up my personal space, my peace, all of that. I don't like people doing that. So I like I said, I like being alone. But then there's that borderline of like being lonely, where it's like, okay, now if I'm alone too long, I don't have any friends to hang out with. I don't have all of that. And then for me personally, it's constant battle of like, because I'm that person that said I'm a nigga all the time. So like it's like you want to be alone, but then you want just one person. You know what I mean? You want just that one person. So I think that's where the fine line of solitude and loneliness goes hand in hand, because like you want to be alone, but you don't want to be alone by yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You want to have your own personal space, but you want to invite like, whoever you like in that space.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, most people opt for a nigga. Most people opt for having a man instead of just having like one of your closest friends just there in silence with you, you know? And sometimes I'm over here like I'd rather have my man over than have my friend over. And like I think a lot of people would agree with that statement, but sometimes you just have to realize that like if you don't got a man, you got people to lean on. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you got people to take up the space of loneliness. Maybe not all of it, because you know you might want some cuddles, booty rubs, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? But at least the company is there. You know.
Now loneliness is one thing and one aspect of it, but it's not all about having that person to comfort you in your loneliness. It's also to build up. So do you feel like in building your relationship, and a lot of people misconstrue that idea of just being with the person is to be with the person, but it's just more to that. If you don't have any history of investments, how is that relationship going to last? Right?
I think if you don't have any history of an investment with someone, it's harder to want to be invested in people, because I know from personal experiences that being invested in people is a lot of work. You're not just taking time out for you, you're taking time out for that person. You're taking not just money out for you, but for that person, you know? And it doesn't have to be romantic. You know, some of your friends might cover you for something that you don't have that week, you know? So everything is basically, like I said before, an investment. And if you've never previously had even an entanglement with someone, it's hard to want to be invested in someone, or it's hard to know when to trust to be invested, you know?
Right. There's a lot of fear going. I mean, you're basically investing your money and your hard-earned time, and a lot of people, I feel as if they're fearful, because if they invest all of that and then the relationship just stops, do you feel that's the reason why relationships are not evolving or not, you know, becoming as good as it should be? Because a lot of people are afraid of putting in the energy, the time, because they're afraid of just being
I think that's one of the factors. I think that's definitely one of the factors. Like for me, I'm afraid to be vulnerable. I'm afraid to be vulnerable with people. I'm afraid to people to help me, you know, and allow people to see me in a way that I don't let people see me, you know?
Right.
Because you might know me, but you don't know who I am behind closed doors. And the same with you. You know what I mean? So like, we're all, like I said, we're all different people. We're all different backgrounds, and it's hard to accept help. So it's hard to accept help. It's hard to accept things for what they are. I lost my train of thought, but yeah.
It's fine. And that experience, when it comes to people just not getting into relationships, the cheating starts to happen because no one wants to put in the time and energy, and no one wants to put in the effort.
Yeah, no one wants to be hurt. No one wants to put in 11 years worth of something, worth of like love, care, money, relationship. That's an investment. Even a year is an investment.
Right.
No one wants to put in 11 years just for that person to end up cheating on them, just for that person to end up waking up one day and just telling them, I'm not attracted to you anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard of marriages where people literally have woken up and told their partner, I'm not attracted to you anymore. I'm not, it's just not doing it for me. And I think that uncertainty of life and how things will go for couples and relationships and love and friendships is hard to acknowledge and hard to accept. Mm-hmm. And once it happens too many times, it gets hard to want to invest in people. You know, it gets hard to want to talk to people. The need to be around people goes down. The need to want to have human interaction goes down because of all the times that people have let you down, and you're tired of people letting you down. So you don't go out of your way to let people down, or let people let you down, you know?
Right, it's all about creating that boundary. And that boundary is something that a lot of people don't have. It's good to be kind, and it's good to have a good amount of circle, but
kindness is cool, but
you know, something with respect too. If you give everyone respect, then it really means nothing.
Yeah.
And I had to think about that. I was like, is that true? I saw this post and I was like, oh, if you give everyone respect. And I was like, that's true, because respect is basically how someone acts in their behavior.
Yeah.
And so boundaries is what's very important.
I think it's important that you should always be kind and respect the person next to you, even if you don't know them.
Right.
But I'm not going out of my way to be nice to you. I'm not going out of my way, and kindness and niceness are two different things. I'm not going out of my way to be nice to you and pick up your flowers or something if they dropped on the floor. Like, you know, I'm not going to bump into you while you're picking them up, but I'm not going to pick them up for you sometimes. And, you know, I think there's a big difference between wanting to allow yourself to have someone to be vulnerable with and have someone be vulnerable with you, as opposed to letting yourself just be closed off. Because I think that letting yourself closed off is easier than allowing yourself to get to know people and allowing yourself to question if you want to be invested or not, you know?
Right.
Because even the early stages of a friendship is the questioning stages of whether or not you want to invest in this person, you know? You know?
Yeah, and that's what it really comes down to, is just knowing who to respect and knowing who to give boundaries. And I've learned this. It's not good to give out the same energy. I used to think that, oh, you know, they're giving you the same thing and you do the same thing back. But that's where the boundaries come in, right? Mm-hmm. So I give everyone the same baseline level of respect. Even if I don't know them, I'll give them like a baseline level, right? Depending on how they act, I wouldn't even deal with the person, you know what I mean?
It may go down, it may go up.
Yeah, for sure. If that's the best thing to do, because you don't want to taint your energy because of someone, right? Mm-hmm. One thing I've realized is you return that same energy, that energy will come back to you. Yeah. And you'll attract that same energy.
It's just a cycle. And I feel like what a lot of people don't realize is that, like, giving the same energy means you have to exude that same energy into the universe, not just to that one person, you know? Because you're just experiencing that universe, you're experiencing that energy regardless. So the universe is gonna see that and give that energy more to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
One thing I hate is when people say, like, I will give them the same energy, because if someone's not giving you that type of time, if someone's not giving you that type of acknowledgement, then why would you give them a second thought? Why would you let them rent your house, which is your head? You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think that's fair. I think that like people show you. I love when people say people show you who they are, because it's true. People show you who they are off the bat, and it's your choice to whether or not you want to get close with them, whether or not you want to fuck with them. Period. But people show you who they are if you are looking.
I believe Maya Angelou said this. If somebody says something about them, believe it the first time.
Believe it the first time. I'm very heavy on. I like to get to know someone and judge them personally off of how I met them and how I know them, and I think that my judge of character is pretty keen. So I wouldn't allow myself or my friends to find themselves entangled with something that's not good for them. Now, my friends are different because I can't control them. They want to jump off a bridge for Crusty the Clown, go ahead. But I'm not going to do it with you.
Right.
You know, heavy on the fact that the baseline level of respect for everybody. Because that's important for me, is that like I give everyone the same baseline level of respect. I give everyone the same baseline level of tolerance, and like I said, I'm a keen judge of character. So if I feel like I don't really fuck with you like that, you're probably not gonna see me like that, you know? If I think that we're cool peoples, you might get a text from me. I mean, I don't even like texting, so if you get a text from me, it's more often than not, I think you're pretty cool and I want to chill, you know?
And that's how you'll get a keen look of things, of people as well, because when you cut off them, and if you keep on doing that usually at the same time, you'll get to understand, okay, what you're looking for in the experience, and then you won't tolerate. Once you're comfortable with doing that, you won't tolerate with the BS, and now you're used to it. There are some people who are people pleasers, and really they're selfish because they want everyone to like them. But if a friend of everyone is a friend of none, right?
I agree. I think if you're friendly, I think if you're friends with everybody, you don't know how to create a certain boundary with what's personal and what's not. Right. Because then if everybody's your friend, like say this table is the map of campus, and you're here, and this is all people of campus. If you're friends with everybody on campus, you're telling everybody your business. You're telling everybody like a part of you. Everyone is holding a part of your soul. You know what I mean? Theoretically.
Yeah, but if you're friends with everyone on campus, there's bound to be some enemies in between that.
I mean, yeah. And how do you navigate that? You know what I mean? Like, how do you? It's part of the reason why I genuinely, I say this all the time, I don't like people, because like if I'm friends with someone and you're not friends with that person, I'm not going to stop being friends with you because you're not friends with that person. I've grown a different rapport with that person, so I cannot validate or invalidate why you're not friends with them, but I can validate the reasons I'm friends with them. You know what I mean? Right. And of course, like, I stand by, if you do me dirty, it's raps, but if you do someone else dirty, depending on who that is, like if I don't know the person you did dirty, I'm gonna give you a chance. I'm gonna keep that in my head. I'm gonna always think about that. But I'm gonna give you a chance. And if you fuck up, even if you fuck up once, I'm done. I don't like to give people second chances because, like I said, they show you who you are. Yeah, and they'll eventually, humans are creatures of habit, so it's really hard for them to... Cardi said it best, niggas will only do what you allow. And I take that for everybody. People will only do what you allow. And if you allow people to continue to act a certain way after you told them you don't like that, that's them just holding no respect for you. You know? If I told you you didn't like it when you kissed your teeth, and they continue to kiss your teeth, you have no respect for me. You know what I mean? I used to when I was younger, actually. Really? Then I stopped because... Luckily, my family was like, "Yo, Joe, like that's not good." Like, which is no, they were right though, but which is like a habit thing. Oh no, my friends could call me with some tea, and they were like, "Yo, Myzzie, da da da." I'd be like, "Don't come over here with that." Like, yeah, it's really, and also individuals don't know how to be cordial. Yeah, that's why it's very hard for them to forgive. It's very hard for them to forgive. Cordiality? Cordiality. I think cordiality is just a word. But I think that if people fuck you up enough, there's no there's no world for cordiality. There's no world for us to be cordial.
But that's kind of the same way as like giving the same energy. Like
no, it's not.
Quiet, right?
Okay, so like say you're ignoring me, but we're still friends. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna. If you're ignoring me, we're not friends. Like why are you ignoring me? Why would you, like, you know what I mean? And if granted, if it's like for no reason, you're just like, all right, I'm just don't put up fun, like a few weeks go by, why are we even friends? You know what I mean? So that's, if you were to come back and I was like, and you were on the like type of, hey Myzzie, how's it going, like what you up to, I'll be like, okay, yeah, like I'm good, you know, and ensuing that conversation is now then allowing you to continue to ignore me in the future, as opposed to me actually being like, we haven't spoken in a minute, and like especially if we were close, my reaction would be completely different as the we haven't spoken in a minute. What's good? What do you want?
Okay,
you know what I mean.
So you're saying that if it's cordial, that means you're still. If
it's cordial, like if I see you on the street, I'm not gonna wave, but like I'm also not gonna whip your ass.
Oh, not like that. Like cordial, as in like when, for example. When I understand that. No, when you're friends with someone, right? And like we said earlier, aforementioned, that person just breaks off, right? But they're both friends with the whole entire friend group. Like, for example, two people, right? Something happened to them, but they had the similar friend groups. The thing is, though, I do believe it's important to be cordial because they're also your friends as well. So you can't just say, you can't be talking to them.
I think it's important to be cordial, but it all depends on what someone did, you know? Like, but let's say person A really affected person B. So they're no longer friends because of the shit that person B did. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or the shit that person A did. So person A and person B are still friends with the whole alphabet community, but person A and person B are friends. You know what I mean? So in that scenario, it depends on whatever the other person did, because let someone do something real dirty, if the friend group, if people in that friend group, if there's certain people that are close friends with me, and you're still friends with that person that did me dirty, we're not friends. You know what I mean? And that goes back to my earlier statement of I don't do that. If you're not cool with them, I don't have to. I'm not cool with them. Bullshit. And that goes back to that because it's all circumstantial. If I'm close with, I don't know, let's say some person named Aaron. If I'm close with this person named Aaron, right? And me and Jack have issues. And Aaron still and Jack did some fucked up shit, and Aaron continues to be friends with Jack, I would no longer be friends with Aaron because where's the loyalty? I'd rather have love than loyalty. You know?
Loyalty, that's the thing. Loyalty, the consequence, one says it best. You never rather have.
I'd rather have loyalty than love, because what's love gonna do for me? I mean, love's gonna hurt each other, and it's also gonna heal each other. But at the end of the day, like, if you're loyal to me, you're gonna help me out. You're gonna be there for me. That's my dog. You know?
I see. So, but in loyalty, I guess in terms of a relationship, you can still technically cheat in a way, right?
Loyalty, yeah, you can still cheat in loyalty. You can still, I mean,
but it's not really
shit still happens. Like if all theoretical, let's say we have a kid, right? And you're the baby daddy, and you go out and step out and stuff. I'm loyal to you only because you're the father of the kid. You know what I mean? So like their loyalties are to default, but you know, never be blindly loyal to someone, or never share blind loyalty to someone, because at that point you're just a fool.
True. And then when it comes to love, it's like a different world, because you can be in love with someone or fall in love with someone, and there's two different sides of the coin. And when you love someone, it can mean at that moment you're in love with that person, but after all that fades, it's like there's no loyalty. So
Yeah,
I understand what he meant by that. And do you feel like love is a little selfish because some people just want to be loved in a certain way, just a little bit?
I don't think love is selfish. I think that if you can't love this certain person the way they need to be loved, that you shouldn't be trying to love them a different way, you know? If you love them a certain way and that doesn't meet their needs, I mean, that's tough. Person B is just gonna have to accept what the person can give them. Like if person B loves them and person A is like, I fuck with you, you know what I mean? That sucks. Person B is just gonna have to find someone that can love them the way they need to be loved. And of course, like sometimes you might have to teach someone certain things about what your love language is and what your love looks like, but at the end of the day, it should never come that hard. It should never be hard to love someone the way they need to be loved if it's that person you need to love, you know?
Right. And when it comes to your music and creating your own sound, do you take that inspiration like as your muse, like relationships and everything that's
I do. A lot of my music is about my relationship really to like everything, whether it's like out of town, whether it's to life. Bad Bitch Anthem, whether it's to shaking ass and being in the club or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's my music relates to my relationship to life. So like if I do have a person with someone, yeah, I'm gonna spit it on the track. I'm gonna go on the booth, say my shit, and that's gonna be that song. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then again, if it's life that's fucking me up, I'm gonna make a song about it. You know? So for me personally, my influences with writing my music and where it comes from is just how I'm feeling in the moment. And a lot of the times it takes me a minute to process something than to put it into words, especially if it's about something real specific. Like if it's like a friend did me dirty or something, it'll take me a minute to formulate the words I want to form. The beat will come quick, you know, because it sounds like you know what type of angry you are. And you know there's different type of angry songs, you know what I mean?
Tempos and beats.
Yeah,
and stuff.
so like you can put your emotions into the beat. And I do that really quick, but when it comes to writing, it'll take me a minute to write something out because I don't want to miss anything when I'm saying. You know what I mean? I don't want to miss any steps in the writing process because there's like, let's say if I'm writing a diss track, I don't want to miss something that happened and I didn't get to put in the song. You know what I mean? Or like maybe there's something down the line that I think about and the song's already written, so I can't really put it in. You know what I mean? Well, and of course, like I could just change it, but it's different if the song was released or something. But it's important for me to take time with writing because I want to write how I feel perfectly. I want to put it into words perfectly. I don't want anyone to be like, well, that doesn't make sense, or I don't get that. You know what I mean? I mean, even if they do get to the point where like they don't get that, I'm okay if they don't get it, as long as it's good. You know, Nicki Minaj says some shit that some of her fans don't get,
right?
But it's good.
And when it comes to songwriting, are you a perfectionist?
Yes. And that's why it takes me so long to write a song. So for Out of Town, the beat was finished, I want to say in December, and the writing process was what took so long. Like I finished the beat in December, I finished writing the lyrics in February, you know, and then the mixing process is just what takes forever. But I finished writing in February, but like the beat was made in December, you know. So it takes time for me personally to want to write something, and when I do want to write something, it can't just be some flimsy ass shit, you know? I want it to hold meaning. I want it to like be like, damn, I get that. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be relatable and also hard.
Yeah, for sure. And so when it comes to sounds like Out of Town and other music that you have created, what are some advice you can give to artists when it comes to making those type of songs which can take time, like what's the process and everything?
Don't rush it. I would say don't rush it, because if you rush especially music, if you rush it, it's not gonna come out the way you want it to come out. It's not gonna sound the way you want it to sound. You're not gonna say the words you want to say, you know? There's a song right now that I've been sitting on for a few months, and shit just doesn't hit you. You know what I mean? There's a J. Cole song that I really like, and one of the lines, he's like, he got the beat a year ago, listened to it, didn't like it, but then heard it again a year later and fucked with it. Sometimes shit just doesn't click when you listen to it. You gotta give it time to marinate, basically.
Right, and also it's the experiences as well. And I also saw on Instagram, there was this musician saying that if your sound or your song does not give you goosebumps, then you need to reevaluate that.
Yeah.
Because if you can feel that goosebumps, then that means your audience has the right to feel the same way as well. Right?
Yes, yeah. I think that. Well, okay. I'm very perfectionist, so not every good song give me goosebumps. And personally, Out of Town didn't give me goosebumps. It was really good, but it didn't give me goosebumps. I released it because it's a good first release after a year, I released solo on SoundCloud, and I was just going through a lot between then and now. And I thought it just best to just take a break, focus on my school, and build myself up for when I hit the ground running. Because now I'm hitting the ground running. I released Out of Town. I got other stuff coming up. I've taken that time to really sit down and acknowledge what type of music I want to make, what type of sound I want to have, and also what I want people to hear. You know what I mean? So now that I've released Out of Town, I've hit the ground running. I got other stuff coming too.
Okay. So other stuff. So you have some other projects along the way?
Yes. I'm not gonna say exactly, but yes, I do have a song coming out in October. I'll announce that on my Instagram later. But I'm excited for that. I just got a couple other stuff lined up that I'm ready for people to listen to, ready for people to enjoy, and yeah.
Okay.
And eventually the album will come, but time takes time.
Okay, that's what's up. And then, do you have any other advice you can get to artists or any remarks?
Just remember who you were when you started.
That's a good one. Wow.
Just remember the person you were when you started, because I always try to remember that, because when I sit down, I'm writing a beat, I'm making a song, I'm like, damn, this shit's ass, but then I go back to that first song I ever made, and I'm like, damn, I came a long way, and that in itself motivates me to be like, alright, this is not terrible, I can do a little better, Right. But just remember where you were when you started, and remember why you started, remember what motivated you to start.
Alright, folks, this is Black Table Talk. Shout out to Myzzie Banks for coming here. Appreciate you for here. Tune in to Out of Town, alright? It's available now on SoundCloud.
It will be on YouTube by the end of the month.
Okay, you heard it here, alright? Thank you for listening. See you next time.
Thank you.